Imagine you get a phone call tomorrow. It's from a program, an organization, or maybe even someone with a polished voice and big promises. They say your child has been chosen for a special opportunity, chosen for something prestigious, chosen for something that sounds almost too good to be true. Your heart skips a beat. You feel pride rising up. This could be the break you've been praying for, but before you say yes, before you open that door, before you sign their name on anything, you need to stop and ask yourself one critical question. Chosen by whom? Not every calling comes from heaven, not every invitation is wrapped in truth, and not every open door leads to life. Today, there are forces working overtime to get access to your child's heart. They know what words to use, they know how to flatter, how to market, and how to disguise lies as dreams. The most dangerous traps don't look like traps at all. They look like golden tickets. And if you're not paying attention, if you're not praying with discernment, your child might step into something that will shape them for years or scar them for life. So listen closely. Because before your child is chosen, there are some things you absolutely must see. Many things in life are not what they appear to be. This is especially true when it comes to influences that present themselves as beneficial or even noble while hiding dangerous motives underneath. In today's world, the line between good and evil has become blurred. What was once clearly seen as harmful now comes dressed in the language of opportunity, empowerment, or progress. As a result, many parents are being misled. They are handing over their children to forces they barely understand because those forces appear polished, impressive, or promising. The deception is not always bold or aggressive. More often it is subtle, masked in carefully chosen words and appealing images. It sounds like a prestigious program, a new kind of education, or a path to greatness. It claims to offer enlightenment, expression, or excellence. But once your child steps into that environment, the message changes, the values shift, and something sacred begins to erode. This is not a theory. It is a reality playing out in homes, schools, entertainment, and even spiritual circles. The danger lies not just in what these influences say, but in what they don't say. They don't tell you how identity will be reshaped, how beliefs will be challenged, or how family values will be discarded. They don't mention the loss of innocence, the confusion they introduce, or the pressure to conform to ideologies that stand in direct opposition to truth. And once a child is taken in by these voices, it becomes harder to reach them. The deception takes root. What once seemed obvious becomes unclear. The parent who used to be trusted is now seen as old-fashioned or out of touch. The world has pulled a veil over their eyes, and getting it off requires more than a conversation. It takes prayer, courage, and discernment. That is why appearances can no longer be trusted. Not every coach, counselor, influencer, or teacher who claims to care for your child has their best interests at heart. Not every door that opens is from God. Some doors are traps. Some stages are altars to ego, not platforms of purpose. Some choices that glitter with potential are paved with compromise. The enemy rarely comes dressed as a threat. He comes as a promise. And that is why we must be vigilant. We cannot afford to be passive observers while our children are being wooed by systems that do not honor the truth. We must test every spirit, question every offer, and ask hard questions about where these roads lead. Because once your child is taken in, once they are chosen by the wrong voice, you may find that getting them back requires a battle you never expected to fight. So look past the surface. Ask what is behind the curtain. Measure everything against the eternal truth. Because no matter how impressive something may appear, if it pulls your child away from what is good, pure, and holy, then it was never good to begin with. In a time not too long ago, parents were the first line of defense, the gatekeepers of their children's hearts and minds. They paid attention. They noticed when something felt off. But today, many parents are overwhelmed, distracted, or lulled into complacency. We are living in a generation where discernment is not only lacking, it's almost mocked. The digital age has created a constant storm of noise and content, and in that storm, parents are losing their grip on what's influencing their children. Screens are raising sons and daughters. Algorithms are shaping their beliefs. Strangers on the internet have become their role models. And far too often, parents only realize what's happened when it's already too late. We scroll, we post, we nod our heads at the trends, but we don't stop to ask, what is this doing to my child's soul? We assume that if something is popular, it must be harmless. We trust what's trending. We let entertainment replace engagement, thinking that as long as our child seems happy or busy, everything must be okay. But the truth is, many children are silently being led into confusion, anxiety, and spiritual darkness, while the people who love them most are too distracted to notice. This isn't said to bring shame, but to bring awakening, because the moment a parent wakes up to the battle, everything changes. Discernment isn't just about saying no to the bad things, it's about seeing beneath the surface of all things. It's about knowing that some dangers wear a friendly face, some lies come packaged in inspiration, and some of the most dangerous influences will never openly declare themselves as evil. They'll come as teachers, coaches, programs, books, shows, and songs that subtly reshape how your child sees themselves, the world, and even God. The problem is, the culture is moving so fast that many parents don't feel equipped to keep up. But you don't have to keep up with the culture, you have to stand firm in truth. Discernment is a spiritual muscle, and like any muscle, it grows through use. When you spend time in prayer and God's Word, in quiet reflection, and in honest conversations with your child, you begin to sense what's right and what's wrong. You begin to feel that inner tug when something doesn't line up with the values you've tried to instill. And when that moment comes, you must not ignore it. Because your child is watching, they may not say it, but they are depending on you to see what they cannot. They are counting on you to speak when the world tries to silence truth. They are hoping you'll fight for them, even if they don't understand the battle just yet. The role of a parent is not just to provide, but to protect, to discern what leads to life and what leads away from it. And in this generation, discernment is no longer optional. It's a lifeline. Not every opportunity is a blessing. That statement may sound strange in a world that constantly tells us to chase every open door, to seize every chance, to never say no when something big comes along. But the truth is, some of the most dangerous paths are paved with golden promises. Some of the worst decisions are made in moments that look like dreams come true. This is especially true for our children. Today, more than ever, they are being offered opportunities that seem extraordinary on the surface. Elite programs, special roles, platforms, scholarships, or invitations that sound like divine favor. But not every open door has God's fingerprints on it. We live in a culture that celebrates fame, visibility, and early success. If a child shows any talent, there's a rush to put them in the spotlight. If a child has charisma, people want to push them forward, showcase them, develop them. But development without discernment is dangerous. Being elevated too soon can crush a soul that hasn't been rooted in truth. Being chosen by the world often means being groomed to fit its mold, shaped to reflect its values, serve its systems, and advance its agendas. And by the time the child or the parent realizes what's happening, the price has already been paid. What looked like a blessing turns into bondage. The schedule is full, but the soul is empty. The smile is wide, but the eyes are tired. The rewards are impressive, but the cost is quiet compromise. And the tragedy is, it all began with something that looked good. That's why it is not enough to ask whether an opportunity is impressive. We must ask whether it is righteous. Is it leading your child closer to God or away from Him? Is it cultivating humility or feeding ego? Is it teaching discipline or encouraging performance-based worth? The enemy knows how to market the counterfeit. He doesn't show up with horns and threats. He comes with a contract, a platform, a promise of influence. He offers your child the world and hopes you won't ask what it costs. But as parents, we are called to guard the gate. That doesn't mean rejecting every opportunity. It means praying through it, asking the hard questions, and watching for the subtle signs, because the wrong opportunity at the wrong time can wound what God wanted to protect. It is better for a child to grow slowly in the soil of truth than to be thrust into the spotlight before they are spiritually grounded. It is better to wait on God's timing than to chase every glittering chance that comes knocking. Not every offer is a gift, not every choice is covered in grace, and not every stage is meant for your child to stand on. Sometimes, what looks like a calling is actually a distraction, and sometimes the greatest blessing you can give your child is the courage to say no to what looks good so they can say yes to what is truly from God. From the very beginning of time, the enemy has had his eyes on the young. In the garden, he didn't wait generations. He came after the first children of man. All throughout history, whenever the forces of darkness wanted to shape the future, they targeted the next generation. Pharaoh ordered the killing of Hebrew infants. Herod tried to destroy the baby boys of Bethlehem. Why? Because the enemy has always known what many parents forget. If you capture the child, you control the future. And that strategy hasn't changed. It's just become more sophisticated. The battle for the minds and hearts of children today is not fought with swords or soldiers. It's fought with screens, curriculum, entertainment, ideologies, and peer pressure. It's fought through media that shapes values, music that redefines identity, and influencers who preach philosophies that sound freeing but lead to bondage. The enemy no longer has to come in the night with chains. He comes in daylight with charm. He doesn't just want to distract your child, he wants to disciple them in his ways, to plant seeds that grow into confusion, rebellion, and despair. This is not an exaggeration. Look around. The identity crisis sweeping through our youth isn't accidental. The normalization of perversion, the glorification of rebellion, the celebration of self above all else, these are not random cultural trends. They are weapons. And the children are in the crosshairs. The enemy knows he doesn't have to destroy every family. He just has to weaken the next generation so the foundation crumbles over time. He doesn't have to remove God from society overnight. He just has to ensure that the children no longer know his voice. And so while parents are busy, tired, and overwhelmed, the enemy is busy planting lies. Lies about who they are, lies about what truth is, lies about what love means. And if no one interrupts those lies with truth, they take root. The longer they sit unchallenged, the deeper they go. And one day, that once innocent child becomes a confused, disconnected adult, wondering why they feel so lost. This is why the role of parents, mentors, and spiritual leaders has never been more urgent. We cannot assume our children will figure it out. We cannot believe that because we raised them in church or taught them right from wrong, they'll always choose wisely. The pressure is intense, and the deception is strong, but we serve a God who is stronger still, and He has given us the authority to pray, to speak, to guard, and to fight for our children's souls. If the enemy is targeting the young, then so must our prayers, so must our watchfulness, so must our commitment to truth, because the battle isn't just about now, it's about tomorrow. And if we lose our children to the noise of this world, we lose more than a generation. We lose the legacy of light. The enemy wants them chosen by the culture. But God has already called them chosen by Him. Let's not hand them over to the wrong hands. There is a great difference between being chosen by the world and being called by God. The world chooses based on talent, appearance, popularity, or potential for profit. It selects the ones who can perform, impress, or conform. It elevates those who can serve its agenda, push its narrative, or entertain its crowds. But God does not choose the way the world chooses. He calls the humble, the obedient, the surrendered. He calls those who are willing to walk in truth even when it costs them everything. And for your child, there will come a moment, maybe several, when a voice will whisper, "You've been chosen." The question is, by whom? The world's version of being chosen often leads to compromise. It may open doors of influence, but at the cost of conviction. It may offer applause, but it will demand conformity. It will not tolerate truth that cuts. It will not celebrate righteousness that stands apart. Instead, it will shape your child into something useful to the system, not holy unto the Lord. The tragedy is that many parents see these moments, these invitations, platforms, offers, and believe them to be signs of blessing. But not every open door comes from God. Some are traps, disguised as treasure. And if your child walks through them unprepared, without discernment, without spiritual roots, they may end up far from the path they were meant to walk. God's calling, on the other hand, is not always loud. It doesn't always come with lights and followers and public approval. It often comes in the stillness, in the shaping that happens when no one is watching, in the choices made in secret. He is more concerned with your child's character than their charisma, more invested in their holiness than their fame. And yet his calling is the one that lasts. It's the one that brings peace instead of pressure, joy instead of burnout, purpose instead of performance. Your child doesn't need to be chosen by the world to make a difference. They need to be set apart by God. They don't need the spotlight. They need truth burning in their hearts. And that begins with what you model, what you protect, and what you speak into their lives. Remind them often, being chosen by culture may bring attention, but being called by God brings transformation. One builds a name, the other builds a legacy. One seeks applause, the other seeks obedience. So before you celebrate the opportunity, stop and ask, does this align with the calling of God? Before you post the announcement, pray and discern. Is this building my child's soul or selling it? Because the world is quick to choose and discard, but God never calls without purpose, never sends without equipping, and never begins a good work without the power to complete it. Help your child hear that voice, the one that speaks life, not just light, the one that calls them by name, not by number, the one that leads them into truth, not just attention. That's the only voice worth being chosen by. In every generation, God has raised up watchmen, those who stand on the wall, eyes open, sounding the alarm when danger approaches. Today, that calling rests heavily on the shoulders of parents, not just to provide food, education, and shelter, but to guard the gates of the home, the heart, and the soul. In a world where so much is trying to gain access to your child, you must decide who gets to come through the door. And make no mistake, someone will shape your child. If it's not you, it will be someone else. Someone who may not love them, who may not know truth, and who certainly doesn't fear God. Too many parents have stepped back from this role, assuming that the youth pastor, the school counselor, or the latest positive influence online will fill the gap. But no one is called to this responsibility like you are. You are the watchman. You are the one God placed in that child's life to discern, to protect, to pray. That doesn't mean controlling their every move or suffocating their growth. It means staying spiritually alert. It means understanding that the greatest threats to your child's soul are often not the obvious ones. They are subtle. They are disguised. They come in through music, through friends, through language that seems harmless, and through content that appears clean but carries a message far from truth. The world has taught parents to outsource discernment, to leave spiritual guidance to the experts and focus on careers, comfort, and convenience. But the enemy doesn't care about your schedule. He works full-time. He's patient. He doesn't need to destroy your child in a day. He just needs you to stop watching. And while you're distracted, the seeds are planted. Seeds of confusion, seeds of doubt, seeds of rebellion, seeds of deception. And once they take root, they don't stay small. But you are not powerless. You are not outnumbered. You have access to wisdom beyond this world. You have authority through prayer. You have the ability to invite God's presence into your home in ways that the enemy cannot stand against. You can speak truth when the world speaks lies. You can expose darkness by simply turning on the light. But it only works if you're on the wall, watching, listening, asking questions, and staying close to the heart of God. Your child may not always understand it now. They may push back, they may roll their eyes, but deep down they are looking for someone who cares enough to fight for them, someone who sees what they cannot, someone who says, not everything gets through this gate, not every voice gets a seat at this table, not every path is safe, even if it's popular. The role of the parent is not to be passive, it is to be prophetic, not to bow to culture, but to stand in the gap. And if we do not rise and take our place as watchmen, someone else will claim the hearts of our children. So take your post, keep your eyes open, and do not step down. The soul of your child is worth the battle. We are living in a time when the world is moving fast and loud, calling out to our children with 100 voices. It promises greatness, identity, freedom, and success, but often leads them far from the truth. As parents, guardians, and mentors, we cannot afford to be silent. We cannot stand by while the world tries to choose our children for its own purposes. We must rise with eyes wide open, with hearts anchored in truth, and with the courage to protect what God has entrusted to us. Not every door is divine, not every opportunity is a blessing, and not every voice that calls your child is worth answering. You have the authority to say yes and the power to say no. You have the right to ask questions, to press pause, to speak life where the world speaks confusion. Your role is not just valuable, it is sacred. Your prayers matter, your presence matters. Your discernment is desperately needed. So before your child is chosen by the world, make sure they know they've already been chosen by God. That's the identity that lasts. That's the path that leads to peace. Good luck as you walk this road with wisdom and boldness. Stay strong, stay watchful, and stay close to the voice of truth. Thank you for caring deeply enough to stand in the gap. Your fight is not in vain. Your child is worth it.